Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. Today we're going to be doing a budget-friendly single barrel matchup between Four Roses single barrel and Evan Williams single barrel to see what comes out on top. So let's get to it. Alright, so both Four Roses single barrel and Evan Williams single barrel fall into a category that I would call budget-friendly. Now the Four Roses single barrel is a little bit more expensive. It's around $45, can go up to around $50. And the Evan Williams is usually around $30. So there's a little price disparity, but I think both are widely available. You can get them pretty much anywhere, and they're always solid buys. So there's a bit of difference in proof. The single barrel from Four Roses is 100 proof, so 50% alcohol. And the Evan Williams is 86.6 proof, so a little bit less proof. I think it's a really good comparison though, not just because of the price, but because of the age of the whiskey. Four Roses single barrel is not age stated, but it's thought to be around 8 years old. And the Evan Williams single barrel actually does have when it's barreled. So this was barreled in 2013, making it an 8-year-old whiskey as well. So they're probably pretty close in age, a little bit different in proof, but both single barrel options that you can find anywhere. So which one's better? What flavors do they offer? That's what we're here today to find out. I've never done these head to head before, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes of it. So I do just want to say that this is just the standard Four Roses single barrel. There's a bunch of different ones that they do with all their 10 recipes. This is just the standard OBSV recipe, which is supposed to be the high rye and have some sort of fruitiness to it. So this is nothing special. There are more expensive single barrels from Four Roses if you've seen those on the shelves. So just wanted to clear up in case there was any confusion. Well, let's get into it. Let's do the nose on glass A and glass B and see what we get. So glass A. Okay, so I do get a fruity sweetness. Could be Four Roses. It does have a nice spice to it. A little bit more like herbal baking spices and fruit sweetness. And then some vanilla. Pretty nice nose overall. And then the glass B, let's compare it to glass B. Okay, glass B, a little bit less jumping out of the glass. Yeah, it's pretty subdued overall. Some good vanilla. Maybe a little bit of nuttiness. Other than that, sort of caramel, vanilla, nutty, maybe a slight nuttiness to it. More delicate nose, I'd say, overall, with less spice. Let's get into the palate now. Palate on glass A. Okay, so that's super interesting, super strong note of a nuttiness on that actually, which is flipping my thought process on what it might be. I thought this might be the Evan Williams because of the nuttiness on the nose, but now I'm starting to think based on the palate, this might be, because nut is sort of a Heaven Hill note that a lot of people get, and a lot of people get that on Evan Williams, and I have gotten that a bunch of times too. But good vanilla and good nuttiness. Yeah, and maybe a little bit of spice in the background, but certainly just a sweet experience overall. Really pleasant. Let's compare that to glass B. Oh yeah, okay. So a lot more fruit on the palate there. Almost like a red apple or green apple fruitiness with some like rye spice, more floral. Wow, I mean, maybe I just switched up the noses in my head somehow, but basically I'm struggling right now because the The palette on glass A seems to match what I remember from Evan Williams, while the palette from glass B matches Four Roses. But then switch that for the noses, where the nose on glass A seemed to be fruitier and maybe Four Roses. I'm confused. We're just gonna go through this and keep tasting them and see what we get. So let's go back. I'm gonna get some water, and then we'll go B to A and focus more on the palate and finish. All right, I've had some water. I'm gonna go to B first. Taste that. Okay, on the nose now I'm getting basically no nuttiness, and a lot more spice. Let's get into the palate. Yeah, so it's staying pretty consistent there. There's like a good kick of vanilla, a little bit of caramel, almost like a caramel covered apple. If you've ever had like a caramel covered green apple, where it's got the real nice caramel sweetness, and then underneath that is that burst of almost slightly sour or spicy apple. Really good palate on that one. Finish lingers with that apple taste and that caramel. So like really consistent from palate to finish, but does linger for quite a bit of time. Let's go back to glass A. Okay, now I'm getting this darker caramel and like nuttiness and vanilla. So the nuttiness is jumping out of this glass now that it's had some time to open up. Yeah, I don't really know where that initial nuttiness note came from on the other one. So let's go into the palate of this and focus on the finish. Yeah, there's like caramel, vanilla, nuttiness, almost like peanut shell and vanilla or vanilla cake. So like mash those two together. Pretty pleasant. I would say the finish on this one is much shorter. It sort of fades away pretty quickly, but is a very pleasant experience on the palate. I'm gonna go back to glass B one more time, give that a taste. There is a mark on the bottom of the glass that is Four Roses. So if you've been seeing that, then you know that whichever one has that mark is actually the Four Roses, despite how confused I am right now. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about that is the apple and spice that come with the palate and finish off with the apple and spice. I mean, it's a really good experience. So how would I break this down? I would say that the nose on glass A might honestly take it with that nuttiness and vanilla. Really cool and attractive and draws you in. And then the nose on glass B is a little bit more delicate and fruity, a little less pungent. So I guess for me, I would say glass A wins the nose just because it's a stronger experience. And then glass B is taking both the palate and the finish. The palate on glass B has more caramel, vanilla, but also that layer of fruit and spice, whereas the palate on glass A is more just vanilla and nuttiness. And then the finish on glass B certainly lasts longer and has a really great like caramel covered apple note to it, whereas the finish on glass A just sort of quickly dies away. Really interested to see if I got this right. I think glass A is the Evan Williams and I think glass B is the Four Roses. But as you saw throughout this tasting, I have not been entirely sure. So, moment of truth here, let's see. Yes, okay. No mark on that one. Mark on this one makes this Four Roses. This was an interesting matchup. Certainly got confused on the nose there for a bit, but I think once the palate and finish came into the equation, it was a little bit easier to pick apart. I will say for sure that both are very solid and interesting drinks. Like, there's enough in both to have a pleasant sipping experience. I do think the 14 point proof point difference makes a big difference for Four Roses on the finish and in the palate, just bringing in an extra level of flavor. But factor in that this is usually about 15 bucks cheaper, and it is certainly a good buy. So today, Four Roses Single Barrel comes out on top as just a more complex, fruity, delightful experience. But Evan Williams Single Barrel, if you're looking for something nutty and vanilla-y, certainly a great place to start. And that is, really the benefit of doing things blind is you've got to dive deep, you've got to pick apart the flavors from nose to palate to finish, figure out what you're tasting and what you like best. Today, Four Roses really hit on that fruitiness that is just a delightful note, but Evan Williams did not disappoint in any way whatsoever. Let me know if you've tried either of these bottles, which one's your favorite. If there's any other, budget-friendly single barrels you think I should be checking out, comment below. If you want to see any other matchups in this sort of category. And until then, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers, everybody.